In this lecture we are going to see the object-oriented concepts. Anyhow, you are familiar with the object-oriented concepts previously, but here we are going to see some unexplored concepts so far in this particular lecture. From the beginning onwards, we are going to see the categories of programming languages, such as programming paradigms, which are imperative paradigms and declarative paradigms. Under imperative paradigms, we have two categories. One is structured, second one is object-oriented. Under declarative paradigms, we have another two categories. One is functional and another is logical. In the imperative paradigms, structured and object-oriented programming are the two categories available. Under the structured programming, we have seen the C programming language. Under the object-oriented programming, we have so many good programming languages such as C++, Java, and Python, which supports the object-oriented features. In order to support the object-oriented features, the basic requirements or basic properties are data abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. So why we need to discuss these properties? Basically, other programming languages, that is other than object-oriented programming languages, used to give the importance to the computation or program structure, but not importance to the data. So in the object-oriented programming, the main importance will be given to the data rather than the structure. So in C programming language, the main importance will be given to the structure but not to the data, because data can be declared anywhere and can be accessed anywhere. But in case of object orientation, the data will be given utmost importance, and the computation will be done based upon the data with the by considering the restrictions on the data. Let us now see the properties one by one. Abstraction. Abstraction means getting the relevant data by hiding the irrelevant data. So in object-oriented programming, data and computation are combined into an object. Basic unit of this combination is said to be class. So this is combining this data and computation into a single unit, which is also said to be class. Which this particular concept is said to be encapsulation. And abstraction means getting the relevant data. That means via functions which are declared in the class, we are going to get whatever the relevant data is required for accessing by any other object or by any other computation. So this is what called abstraction means. And encapsulation means getting the data and computation into a single unit. This particular unit is said to be class. For a class, one can have any number of instances. This particular instance is called object. In one way, the proper encapsulation will provide the data abstraction feature in a proper way. The reason is like this: combining this particular data and computation in particular unit called class, this particular technique is also said to be creation of an abstract data type. The reason is, in data types we have two categories. One is user defined data types, another is predefined data types. Predefined data types are the data types which will come along with the programming languages, such as integer, character, float, etc. In case of user defined data types, this class, structure, union, these are the things will come under the user defined data types. So the abstract data type is a user defined data type that satisfies the following conditions. That is, first condition is the representation of an object of a type or defined in a single syntactic unit. Also, other units can create objects of the same type, which means creating the instance. In other words, writing a class structure is also said to be abstract data type. While coming to the second condition, the representation of the object of the type is hidden from the program unit that uses these objects. So the only operations possible are those provided in the types definition, which is nothing but combining the data and functions together. So finally, abstract data type ADT means writing a class. Important feature of the object orientation is inheritance and polymorphism. Basically, the object-oriented feature programming have a special feature which is called reusability. This feature is not available in any other programming languages. Reusability means using a particular piece of code many number of times without changing the intended code. So that means we can replace the implementation of an object without changing the actual client code. So this is what is called reusability. Because of this reusability, the object orientation has become very famous. This particular reusability can be achieved via inheritance. Inheritance means it is a relationship between a class and one or more refined versions of it. The class is being refined is called superclass, and the refined versions are said to be subclasses. So inheritance allows a new class to reuse to the features that exist of the existing class. So the class which is going to be refined is called superclass, and the refined version, that means the one which has taken the features from the superclass and have added its own features, are said to be subclasses. C++ supports 5 types of inheritances: single inheritance, multiple inheritance, multi-level inheritance, hybrid inheritance, and hierarchical inheritance. Where in case of Java programming, Java basically supports 2 inheritance concepts. One is single inheritance, another is multi-level inheritance. Where in case of in virtually, Java programming supports multiple inheritance via interfaces. The next important feature is polymorphism. Polymorphism is another important object-oriented feature, and polymorphism is a word actually defined from Greek word, which means ability to take many forms. An operation may exist with a different behavior is in the different instances. That means sometimes a function may behave differently in different situations. So this depends upon the type of data being used in the operation. So this particular polymorphism concept can be achieved in object orientation via overloading and overriding. Assume that shape is a superclass which is having 3 subclasses, say for example circle, box, and triangle. So circle, box, and triangle, and shape. So any shape may be having a particular function called area. So this area may be defined by the circle and also by the box, or maybe by the triangle. So in superclass the same function is there. At the same time, the subclass is also area is a function which is going to be defined. So this is the way of using the same function in the superclass and subclass. So without changing the signature of the function, the same function is defined in both superclass and subclasses. So this procedure is said to be function overriding, where in case of within the class, if multiple functions are written and defined with the same function name but with different parameters, which is said to be function overloading. So with these concepts, let us see the benefits of the object orientation. So object orientation have a lot of benefits. First is it will achieve reusability, that is through inheritance, and also we can have perfect modularity. Modularity means which means the achieving loose coupling and with high cohesion. Loose coupling means the data and related functions can be combined together so that it will be used as a unit. So these units are highly cohesive, and like this a program consisting of any number of modules or any number of units, so which will function in its entirety. So those are independent modules. So in this way we will achieve the loose coupling and high cohesion. Generally classes are just like an abstract types, and objects are the concrete types. So every class consisting of data, instance variables, and operations. So it includes data. Data means here the class variables, also known as static variables, which are shared across all the objects of this class. Where in case of instance variables, also known as member variables, it depends upon the copy in each object. So here these instance members are the independent copy in each object and similar to the fields of structure. So while coming to the operations, member functions will be there. Member functions in the sense always take object as implicit argument, where in case of class functions, also known as static functions, that do not take implicit object as implicit object arguments. Object is an instance of class, and variables of class type, we can say it's a variable of class type. In C++, An access to the member of objects is regulated through the following keywords. One is private, protected, and public. In case of Java, there are four access methods. One is private, protected, public, and if any data has not been declared with any of this access specifier, then that is said to be default specifier, or default access specifier, or friendly access specifier. In C++, if a data is declared as private, or if a function is declared as private, it is accessible only to the member functions of the class, cannot be directly accessed by other functions, or we can say by other objects. By coming to the data declared as protected, then which allows the access from member functions of any subclass. That means if a protected data is declared in superclass, then it can be accessible only to its subclasses. So no other class other than the subclasses can access this protected data. Where in case of public, can be called directly by any piece of code. The member functions are of two types. One is statically dispatched member functions, another is dynamically dispatched member functions. So dynamically dispatched member functions are declared using keyword called virtual in C++. So if a class consisting of a virtual function, then it is said to be dynamically dispatched functions. Where in case of if a function does not consisting of virtual and normally written, then it is said to be statically dispatched. Statically dispatched means the function resolution will be done at the compile time. In case of dynamic dispatch, the function resolution will be done at the runtime. So all member functions are virtual in Java, where in case of C++ we use a keyword called virtual. This slide shows you how to write a class in C++. The class name, and variable list. These variables which are also to be data members. These data members will be having a particular access specifier, which is called here private. By default, if you won't declare any access specifier, the default access specifier is private in C++. Where in case of Java, the default access specifier or default access or friendly access is the default access specifier in Java. In case of C++, for the variables that you want to declare it as private, you should write an access specifier private like this, and a colon, then followed by the variable names, or the data types and corresponding variable names. Next one is functions. All the functions can be declared as public or private or protected. So here all the functions were declared as public. So the reason access specifier public was written, then followed by the functions. In this, the first function is said to be constructor. The constructor should have the same name as class name, and constructors may be default constructors. That means default constructor in the sense the constructor that won't take any argument. And here this particular constructor has taken argument int first. So this is said to be parameterized constructor, and constructors can be overloaded. Constructors will not return any value like function like functions. Constructors won't return any value. Here there is no value was written, and it is always recommended to declare constructors as public, because if you declare constructor as private, that class cannot be instantiated. So this is the constructor concept. Whenever any class is initialized, first default constructor will be invoked. If the class is initialized with the parameterized constructor, then the corresponding parameterized constructor will be invoked. And in the next line you will see the tilde symbol followed by the class name function. So this is said to be destructor. So all the destructors will be started with a tilde symbol in C++. Where in case of other functions are there, inserting, get value, and get next. So these are the general operational functions. These functions will perform the computation on the data, that is int list, star next, and int element. So this particular data is more sensible, so that reason it is declared as private, and the functions which are operating on the data are declared as public. So this is the way how the data and member functions have been binded into a single unit called class. This is what they called encapsulation. And if any function wants to get the value of the list, then it will only access the object of int list and get val, so that it will only get the relevant data, that is called getting of the value, corresponding value. So this is what thing called abstraction. So this is the way how the abstraction and encapsulation is combined into a single unit called class. Now we'll see how the inheritance is implemented. In case of assume that there are two classes A and B. If A wants to get the properties from B, in case of C++, we are going to write like this: class A colon the access specifier, the inheritance access specifier. It may be public, private, or protected, and from which class you want to get the properties, that you are supposed to write here. So class A colon public B. Whenever I say public B, whatever the contents in the class B will be directly imported into your class A. Where in case of Java, we are supposed to use a keyword called extends. Class A extends B. Like C++, in Java there is no public, private, protected related inheritance. It is by default public in case of Java programming, and there is no other access inheritance accesses are available in Java. So it is very simple to declare class A extends B. Since Java supports single and multi-level inheritance, so it can extend only one class. But in case of C++, it supports multiple inheritances like single, multi-level, multiple, hierarchical, and hybrid inheritance. So here class A can extend any number of classes. Next, the variable declarations, either it may be declared as private, depending upon the need. The variables may be declared as private, protected, or public. So whenever you declare a variable as protected, then it can be used to its subclasses also. That means if any class is getting the properties from class A, then that class A can directly get the protected variable int y into the class. So where in case of here private int x protected int y. So here look at private colon must be written, and any number of variables that to be declared as private should be written under this private colon. Where in case of Java programming, for every variable declaration the access specifier must be written. So this is the way how the inheritance will be implemented in Java and C++. To understand the concept of the object orientation in C++ and Java, let will go for an example. Here a simple example was given. This program is going to represent the most complex problem in the spiritual line, that is, who is God. Okay, this particular class will become quite, this particular explanation is quite interesting. The one who will follow this general tradition of their spirituality will like this, and also it will be quite interesting, I hope so. So this program was written by me, and the reason behind this is the object orientation is not far away from the reality. Objects will always exist in the reality. So for example, yourself is an object and myself is an object. Anyone can be an object, or anything can be an object, that is chair or fan or any other thing can be an object, considered as an object. That means in general terms, anything that can be represented that is of type noun is said to be an object. So that is reason when these kind of things are available in the reality, obviously all these things will be having some relationship. So this relationship is modeled via associations in the sense how one object is related with other object. So this association is maybe in terms of inheritance or maybe in terms of aggregation. Aggregation means an object may be a part of another object, or an object may take the properties from another object. So this is the way how the relation will exist. So These relations are modeled in natural language, that especially in case of English, with respect to verbs. So, for example, Rama eats food. That means Rama and food can be considered as objects, and eats is a verb. So, in this way, the two objects can be connected. So, this is generally looks like how the common way of modeling the things in the real world. So it is it is very closely the object-oriented concepts are very closely related to our real environment. So that is the reason I have taken this particular example, and this particular example was written by me, and this particular one example will give most of the concepts of the object-oriented programming, and these concepts in one or another way you may be knowing it, but some concepts in this are not explored during your C++ programming courses. Let us consider the most complex problem on the earth, that is, who is God. So we always think about God, but who is God? So God is completely an abstract class. That means an abstract entity. That means there is no instance for the God. So everyone can instantiate the God in their own way. So hence there is no instantiation. That means an object cannot be created for the God. So that reason I am considering a God class, which is an abstract class in the C++. But if you want to make an abstract class in C++, that abstract class must have at least one pure virtual function. Previously we have seen static calling and dynamic calling. So static calling means the functions will be resolved during compile time, and dynamic calling means the function resolution will be done at the runtime. So in C++, the function resolutions will be done at runtime via virtual functions. That means whenever you say virtual, only one copy of whenever you declare a function as virtual, only one copy of the function will be existing in the subclasses. So this is the way how duplicate copying of the functions into the subclasses from the superclasses can be avoided. While coming to the pure virtual functions are the functions which are initialized to 0, that we will see in this particular class. So the class God is an abstract class, as there are pure virtual functions declared. So here I am going to declare class God. This class God is basically abstract in nature. There is no instance for this. Next is in this class we have declared private variables accessed only within the class. Here we are going to declare private variables. Basically, if we won't declare any access specifier for the variables, then those variables will become private by default. So here two variables were defined: unsigned int number of heads, unsigned int number of hands. So these are the two variables declared. So some people will say that God don't have any. God will be having one hand, two hand, three hands. So if you look at the Vishwarup of Vishnu, it will be having many hands and many heads. So this is the way how the people will describe the God. So that is the reason two most common variables, that is number of hands and number of heads, will be considered as the variables. Next is can define any number of variables like this. So not only to these two, you can have God having their own properties. So these properties can be defined in terms of variables in any manner, or any number of variables can be written here. Next, I am using the protected access specifier, so that this protected access specifier will be the data which is declared as protected can be inherited and can be accessed in the subclasses. So God, some people will think God may be male. There are a lot of debate. God is male, God is female. Okay, so like that. So hence that is the reason protected variables accessed within the class and subclasses, so which is declared as character star gender. So the one who like Shakti related gods, so obviously they will characterize the god and goddess. Okay, so that the gender will be declared as male or female. In this way, this particular protected access can be useful for us. Next we will come to the constructor. Here public, because the constructors should be declared as public. So here a default constructor is there. The constructor will be just like a function with the same name as class name. So here this is the God constructor, which is a default constructor. So constructors can be overloaded. So the same function name but with different parameters list. So here parameterized constructor with default parameters. So here number of hands, number of heads, and gender. So this is a default argument that is applied to the constructor. So whenever you declare, whenever during the initialization, if the number of heads and number of hands were declared, and if you won't declare the third variable, then by default the gender will become neutral. So this is the way the default parameterized constructor works. So next we'll move on to the pure virtual function concept. So here virtual is usually used to resolve the function definition during the runtime. So if you without virtual, if you might have written void bless me, then it is a function declaration. But virtual void bless me is equal to 0. So this is the first time you might have seen, okay, the declaration of a function, initialization of a function to 0. So this way of declaring functions is said to be pure virtual functions. So this is also said to be pure virtual functions. So initializing a function that is a virtual function to 0 is said to be pure virtual function. And make note of this: if any class consisting of at least one pure virtual function, then that class cannot be instantiated. That means then that class will become abstract. So here two pure virtual functions are there. One is bless me, another is bless all. So that means I'm requesting a god to bless me, and also since sarve jana sukhino bhavantu, so I want to I'm praying God to bless all. So bless all here. So basically how this particular pure virtual function works. So these are the 5 points you must remember quickly, and these things will be useful for the interview purpose. This class is abstract because instance cannot be created. This is this class consisting of pure virtual function. So next this class is abstract because as this class consisting of pure virtual function. In C++, a class is said to be abstract if it is consisting of at least one pure virtual function. For example, I have not defined bless me, but I have defined bless all. Then still it will become pure abstract class. The reason is one pure virtual function exists. So if any class extends or inherits the abstract class, then the subclass must define all pure virtual functions. Otherwise, the subclass will become abstract by default. So if any class is extending this God class, then it must that class must also define these two pure virtual functions. Otherwise, what will become? Otherwise, what will happen? That subclass will also become abstract class. So pure virtual functions are defined to avoid duplicate copies of overridden function. For example, say class X is extending God class, that means taking the properties from God. Then this bless me definition will also exist in the God and also exist in its subclasses. So thereby what will happen? Duplicate copies of the same function definition will come into the picture. So that reason pure virtual functions are defined to avoid duplicate copies of overridden functions. So it is caused especially due to hierarchical and hybrid inheritance. So basically single, multi-level and multiple inheritances have a kind of sophistication, but hierarchical and hybrid inheritances poses this kind of problem. So to avoid this problem in C++, this pure virtual functions have been used. While coming to the dynamic binding is used to call the virtual function definition. So dynamic binding in the sense the name resolving of the functions whenever the function call is appeared, the resolving of the function will be done during the runtime. So this such kind of resolution is said to be dynamic binding. But in case of Java programming, if you want to declare an abstract class, you no need to write any pure virtual function in that. There is an abstract keyword is available. If any class want to be declared as abstract, just you write abstract before the class definition. That is as just like this. Class God, before that you write abstract class God. So by default it will become abstract. And if you want to declare a function as an abstract, then instead of virtual you write abstract void bless me. No need of initializing to 0 in case of Java programming. Even Java programming will also follow dynamic binding. That means the calling to the resolving of the functions at the time of calling will be resolved during runtime. So finally we will go to the destructor. Destructor is used to deallocate allocated memory via constructor. If any memory is allocated in the constructor, that can be destroyed within the destructor. So basically destructor concept is not a recommended concept in object orientation. However, in C++ supports the destructor concept. Usually this destructor concept will be used for the garbage collection. We have seen in the storage management in programming languages, the garbage collection can be done in two ways. One is automatic garbage collection, second one is manual garbage collection. So garbage collection means removing the allocated memory in our main memory, that is in the computer's main memory. So this manual way of destroying the manual way of garbage collection, in this the programmer has to manage this to remove the allocated memory from the to remove the allocated memory. So for that destructors are used in case of C++, but in case of Java programming there is no concept of destructor, because in Java programming the garbage collection will be done automatically at the end of the program. The object will not exist anymore once the destructor is called on the object. So once the destructor is called, you must be very cautious in handling the object. That means there is no memory allocated for that object. So if you try to refer to the previous object name, then you may result into error. So this is the way how the God class was written, which is a pure abstract class. So since no one can define who is God, so the reason this God will aptly suitable for the coding in this way. Next we are trying to inherit this God class. Okay, we are going to define Ganesha class. Ganesha is inherited from abstract class God. In C++, total 5 types of inheritances are available. One is single inheritance, multi-level inheritance, multiple. Next one is hierarchical, and next one is hybrid inheritance. Note, in Java supports a single and multi-level inheritance. However, multiple inheritance can be achieved via interfaces. So there are 3 types of inheritance procedures in C++: public inheritance procedure, private, and protected inheritance procedure. We will see how these particular inheritance procedures will work. If a public inheritance procedure is used, then the public variables of the superclass will become public to the subclass. Private variables of the superclass cannot be accessed in the subclass. Protected variables of the superclass become protected to the subclass. If the inheritance is by private, then public variables of the superclass will become private to subclass. Private variables of the superclass cannot be accessed in the subclass. Protected variables of the superclass become private to subclass. If it is protected inheritance, then public variables of superclass becomes protected to the subclass. Private variables of superclass cannot be accessed in the subclass, and protected variables of superclass becomes protected to the subclass. So this is the way how the public, private, protected inheritances will function. So Java does not have these inheritance procedures. However, inheritance in Java means public inheritance only. So how this particular public, private, and protected inheritance procedure is used? So if we look at here, class Ganesha, public God. That means it is public inheritance. We are going to use public inheritance in this. So what is the meaning of public inheritance? Public inheritance means public variables of superclass become public to subclass. That means what are the public variables available in God? There are no public variables available. But here protected variable is available and private variable is available. So private variables of superclass cannot be accessed in the subclass. So here the private variables are number of hands and number of heads in the God class. These variables cannot be accessed in the subclass. So for this, what you are supposed to do is you are supposed to copy this into protected. Then only these number of hands and number of heads can be accessible in the Ganesha class. Next one is protected variables of superclass becomes protected to the subclass. So here, what is a protected variable here? Gender. So this protected variable become protected in the subclass. That means in the Ganesha class, character gender will become protected. So protected and accessing of protected variable and private variable will be same within the class. That means protected data and private data can be accessed via public methods. So next we'll move on to the Ganesha class Ganesha public God. So the properties of the God class is coming into the Ganesha. That means bless me and bless all also will also come into the Ganesha class. So here public access specifier is used. So hence I can declare the constructor here Ganesha, which is a default constructor. It is always recommended to write a default constructor. So this is a good practice. This is a good programming practice to write a default constructor. Next is there are two functions, bless me and bless all. So these bless me and bless all are the pure virtual functions that are defined in the God class. So however, since you are using the public God class method, inheritance, so automatically the pure virtual functions will also be coming into the Ganesha class. So hence if you are not defining the bless me and bless all function, then this particular Ganesha class will become the abstract. So the reason what I am going to do is I am going to define these two functions. Void bless me, so see out what it will do is Ganesha blessed me, and bless all, that means Ganesha blessed you, bless all. So this is the way how the definition was done. Next one is I am writing the destructor. Destructor is used to remove the allocated memory via constructor. Next, in the same way, this is single inheritance. Here we are going to use single inheritance. For example, by separated by comma, if you use another thing called say public and if you can write some other thing like elephant head or something, so then thereby what will happen, that property will come into this Ganesha. So like this you can use multiple inheritance. So if you want to use multiple inheritance, then separate by a comma and write whatever the class you want. Next is whatever the classes I have written here are the single inheritances. So class Vishnu is also a public God, so getting the properties from God. So here Vishnu also blessed me and blessed all. Here class Rama public Vishnu. So here look at Rama is the we are considering Rama is the incarnation of Vishnu. So hence Vishnu again is a type of God. So that is the reason class Rama is getting the properties from Vishnu, and we are going to define bless me and bless all. So this bless me and bless all came to Vishnu through God, and to Rama through Vishnu. So that is the reason we must define this bless me and bless all in Rama also. Otherwise what will become, Rama will become abstract. Next class Krishna and public Vishnu. So Lord Krishna can also be considered as a reincarnation of Vishnu. So hence here bless me bless all will also come into the Krishna. So that is the reason we must define this bless me bless all. So next is Gautama is another reincarnation role of Vishnu. So here also the bless me and bless all functions will come into the pure virtual functions will come into the Gautama. So hence we are supposed to define these two pure virtual functions. Next here class Jesus public God. So in the field of Christianity, the people will think Jesus as God. Actually Jesus is not God according to me, but we will consider Jesus as God because we have so many gods. So this is not a problem to consider Jesus as God. So here class Jesus and public God, public Jesus blessed me and Jesus blessed you all. Next is class Shakti. So see here this is a completely different class compared to other things. Here I am going to construct another class Shakti, which is also a type of God. So here Shakti blessed me and Shakti blessed all. Two pure virtual functions were defined. Now I am going to use class Durga and public Shakti. So here I am going to get the properties of Shakti. So here in Shakti you can define your own other methods which are related to or which will stabilize this properties of Shakti. So this Shakti was inherited through Durga. So Durga is a constructor, and bless me and bless all. So Durga blessed me and Durga blessed all. So this is the way how can you can write any number of classes, or you can go for any number of inheritances. Now we'll move on to the main method. In the main method, the object is abstract in nature, that is God star God. So here basically you cannot instantiate God class because God is abstract by default. So the reason what I am doing is Vishnu Vish. This is object for the Vishnu class. So this particular object, what I am going to do is I am going to initialize it to the God class. So here God is equal to ampersand Vishnu. The object God become alive by assigning the address of Vishnu. So how it is looking like, you are considering a God with an object, that means a simple idle. So here to that idle you are going to initialize the memory for that. So that means it is just like an idol worship in Hinduism. So a god you are thinking of, and you are creating an idol which is an object here, and for that object you are going to initialize the memory, or you are going to initialize the life into that. So you are going to assign a memory means you are going to assign the life. So thereby what will become, the god will become live by assigning the address. So this is quite simple as the idol worship for that in the Hinduism. That means we are thinking of a god and an object, and for in that particular object we are going to assign whatever the memory, or in case of object orientation this is the memory. In case of the general spirituality, it is kind of pratishtha, that means initialization we are going to do this. So a best example is in India we used to conduct the Ganesh Navratri or Durga Navratri. So we are going to bring an idol and initialize on the first day with some puja and all, performing puja and all, offering puja. We can say this is a kind of pratishtha, prana pratishtha. So this is kind of initialization, or we can say creating of an instance. So this is like God is equal to ampersand Vishnu. That means I am going to initialize Vishnu into the God. So thereby what will happen, the dynamic method dispatching we are going to demonstrate here. The dynamic method dispatching calling to an overridden function is resolved during the runtime rather than compile time. So here if I call God bless me, so here bless me is a function which is available in God class, at the same time in the Vishnu class also. But which function will be resolved? So this function, which function will be resolved during the this particular call, God bless me? That means this will follow dynamic method dispatching. That means calling to an overridden function. Here bless me is an overridden function. This will be resolved during the runtime. That means during runtime, because to this God ampersand Vishnu is initialized. So thereby what will happen, the bless me function which is defined in the Vishnu class will be invoked according to the dynamic method dispatching. So what will happen, when I say God arrow mark bless me, the resultant value will be Vishnu blessed me. So this Vishnu blessed me will be printed. So assume that to this God I have assigned some other object. Say for example here Krishna, Krish. Say for example to the God this Krish is assigned, memory of the Krish is assigned. Then if you say God arrow mark bless all, so which method will be invoked? The bless all method which is available in the Krishna class will be invoked. So this is the way how the dynamic method dispatching will work. So this dynamic method dispatching will work in case of the virtual functions. That is when you have written the pure virtual functions. So it is especially to avoid the duplicate code coming from the superclass to the subclass. So C++ will allow you to declare the objects in static way. This is said to be stack allocation. Allocation of object. So this is a static allocation or stack allocation, you can say, where in case of here God star my Ganesha is equal to new Ganesha, which is called dynamic memory allocation, or we can say this is a heap. This is a heap allocation. So here next is my Ganesha arrow mark bless all. So that means
we are going to which function will be called here. So bless all function which is defined in the myGanesha or Ganesha class will be printed or will be executed. So here God star myGanesha is equal to new Ganesha. So for the God object, which is called an abstract object, which cannot be instantiated. For that, an instantiable class related memory is assigned. That means whatever the object you think as God will become God. So that means God don't have any concrete structure. That means God will become like this. So here, since God star myGanesha is equal to new Ganesha, so obviously this will allocate dynamic memory into the star myGanesha, that is myGanesha object. Now think of here star myGanesha, which is a lengthy way of writing, and star God star G is equal to new Ganesha. So which will give you the same object type. That means the new Ganesha, that is memory is initialized to the star G, and in the first case also new Ganesha, here memory of the Ganesha is also initialized to the myGanesha. That means during the in the Hinduism, in the idol worship, if the idol is small or a big, it doesn't matter. The content is same. That means the memory or the life which is existing in the object is same. The life of the or divineness existing in the small idol or big idol will become the same. So with this myGanesha bless all means the bless all function that is defined in the myGanesha class will be printed. Next is calling the destructor. So we are going to use a delete function. We are going to use delete keyword to deallocate the memory. So delete my God. That means we are going to call the destructor here. So the memory which is allocated via constructor will be deallocated. So whenever we say delete my God, so my God is one that where is my God was defined. There is no my God here. Delete God we can say, or we can say delete G. So delete G or delete myGanesha. So delete myGanesha, that means the destructor of the Ganesha class will be invoked. So it is just like as I told you in the beginning, during the Ganesh Navaratri or Durga Navaratri, we will bring an idol from outside and we will initialize this, we will perform puja and all, we will go for praying of this. After end of the 9th day, we go for dipping in the nearby river, which is called Visarjan. So in the same way here also delete myGanesha. So this means we are going to create myGanesha and we are doing whatever the operations we want or whatever the functions we want to call from this myGanesha. Once the work is over, then we are going for delete myGanesha. That means we are going to go for dipping into the river or a sea. So this is the way how the objects are created and how the objects are destroyed in C++. But in case of Java programming, there is no delete keyword and there is no manual garbage collection. The garbage collection will be done automatically at the end of the program. Here an important question is it possible to access function in a class without object? Yes, we can also access the functions of a class without an object, without creating an object. So how is it? For example, I want to access bless all. I want to make Rama to bless all. So without object of Rama, then we can say new Rama. New Rama and here bless all. So thereby what will happen? New Rama memory will be created. With this memory, that is and some initialization will be happened using this particular memory, the Rama class. From the Rama class, bless all. That means Rama is going to bless all of you. So that is This is the way how you can go for. But the main problem with this, how to hold this particular memory. So without any object, we cannot hold the memory. So the reason, the best way is use the ideal worship concept. So you use this like this. God star Ram is equal to new Ram, and say Ram bless all. So what will happen here? A particular object is keep on holding the memory of holding the RAM's memory. So thereby what will happen with RAM, you can do anything. But if you want to call a function, so if you use like this new RAM, what will happen? Then for every movement, you are supposed to say new RAM, new RAM, new RAM, and do the work. But the previous RAM instance may not be similar with the next RAM instance. So if you want to make a similar instance to work with you, then better it is go for ideal worship concept, that is God star RAM is equal to new RAM. So wherever you want to carry this particular RAM object, your RAM is always with you. So this is the way how the object orientation will work in case of C++. So the same concept can also be written in Java programming. So your task is to rewrite this program in Java programming. Now we'll see how the object orientation will be applicable in Python programming. Here an example is there, class person, define underscore init underscore self comma name. This init is set to be constructor, underscore init underscore. This is the style of writing for the constructor. Next is define say hello of self, print hello my name is self dot name. Define underscore delete underscore self. So this print say by self dot name. So this delete here init is a constructor, and here self means that it is referring to the current object. It is just like this keyword in Java and C++. So you are aware of that in Python programming, giving the tab spaces will be the programming structure representation. So after this delete function, so here A is equal to person of Yang Li was written here. That means that you are going to create the person object which is called A. So this particular person having an object called A. there is no keyword called new in Python. So just by calling the constructor, it means that you are going to create the object. So this example includes class definition, constructor. This is the class definition, constructor function, destructor function, attributes, and method definition, and object definition. This is the object definition. So these definitions and uses will be introduced specifically in the following slides. So the class definition and object instance. The class definition will be like this: class, subclass. If you want to extend any superclass, then it must be written in the brackets like this, square brackets, the superclass. If you want to extend multiple superclasses, superclass A, comma superclass B, comma superclass C, like that, you are supposed to do. Next is the object instance syntax, object name and class constructor. The constructor should be called here. Next is attributes and methods to invoke. Object dot attribute, just like our C and C++, and C++ and Java. Then next is object dot method. So inheritance in Python programming: class person, define speak, and class man, which is having the property, which is getting the property from person. So define where, print I wear shirt, class woman, again extending the person class, I wear skirt. So man is equal to man dot wear, man dot speak. That means, so man is getting the property where, and also here man is getting property speak. So where and speak, these are the two properties, two functions that can be accessed via man, because speak will also come into the man. To have multiple inheritances, we are supposed to define like this: class, derived class, base 1, comma, base 2, comma, base 3. Like that you can have multiple inheritance in Python programming. As just now I told you, self is in Python is like pointer, this in C++. In Python, functions in class access data via self. So self dot like that you are supposed to use to access the class related data. In Python, like C++ and Java, there is no specific access specifiers, public, private, protected. There is no keyword defined like public or private or protected, but all are basically Python will think every variable as public by default. But you can make a particular data variable or function or something, anything can be as private just by adding the underscore symbol in front of the variable or function name. Can hide them when accessing them from the outside of the class. So thereby that particular variable or function name will become private. That is as shown in this particular example. Class person define def init. That means it's a constructor. In this self.a is equal to Yang self.__ b. That means this represents the private variable and this will represent the public variable. In case of print, in the function print name, self.__ b, this will be invoke the private variable in the class. So p.a, since it is a public variable, this can be accessed outside of the program. This p is equal to person, p is an object, p.a, so we can access this. But p.__ b access private variable of the class. It will go for failing of the access because it is private within the class. It cannot be accessed outside of the class. So this is the way private and public can be used. There is no concept of protected in the Python programming. While coming to the polymorphism, Python supports overriding but not overloading. This is also sometimes called traditional polymorphism. Here class animal, in which a name, sleep, make noise. These are the three functions available. Class dog, which is getting the properties from animal. In this also name and make noise, two functions are there. Same function, the functions which are defined in the superclass are also redefined in the subclass, which is called overriding. Class cat, which is also extending animal, in which name, make noise. Lion, which is getting the properties from animal, name, make noise. So here class test animals, print name, go to sleep, make noise. So these are the functions which are defined in the superclass are also defined in the subclass. This is a concept of overriding. So overriding is happily permitted in Python. There is no concept of overloading. Like C++, how the C++ supports the operator overloading, which is a kind of polymorphism. In Python also it supports polymorphism in terms of operator overloading. Like for example, if you look at 1 plus 2, where plus can be is used as arithmetic operator between two integers, where thereby it is giving you output as 3, and key plus board, adding of two strings, again it is giving you the complete string. Adding of two lists, it will give you two lists. Adding of two sets, again it will give you two sets. Adding of two dictionaries, it is giving you two combined dictionary. So this is the way this plus operator can be used on integers, strings, lists, etc. So this is the way how the polymorphism is achieved in Python. So the traditional polymorphism, polymorphic operator methods is supported in Python, and functions of type instance, is subclass, etc. is not supported as polymorphism in Python. So this is the end of object orientation in with respect to the C++, Java and Python. There are many other concepts are there. Maybe those concepts are familiar to you. These are the concepts which are unexplored. So that is the reason these concepts were focused. So you are recommended to rewrite the program, which is the God program in Java and Python.